I want to take a few moments to give you a fun weekend project and to make sure you all know about our weekly Instagram challenges. Now, we've been running these for almost a year. They've been an absolute blast. It's a great way to get your work showcased out to more people. Basically, we give you a topic, you photograph, put that on Instagram with the hashtag, and then share it with us, and we share it out on our weekly live show. This week's challenge is Freelens, or Freelensing is the actual challenge. The tag is going to be Freelens. All of the information about these Instagram challenges are going to be right down below. But we had a lot of questions when we announced this on last week's show, so I thought it'd be fun to take a few moments and show you what Freelensing is. You know, it's one of those things that's kind of a little artsy. So I've got these dead, dried, stalky flowers here. I'm working with the T6S and the 28 to 75. One thing that's kind of nice about this is you don't need a particularly sharp lens. Any lens will really work. If you're on Nikon and you have access to an older manual aperture control lens, that's great, because here's what freelensing is. You're going to actually remove the lens from the camera. So you want to disconnect. And obvious disclaimer here, you're going to do this at your own risk. You're not going to hurt the camera by removing it or taking pictures. Sure, you might get a little bit more dust in the sensor by doing this, but you know, it's not the end of the world. And your goal is to then hold the lens very close, freely, that's the free lens part, to the mount and try taking some pictures and see what you get. Now, a couple of quick tips. As soon as you disconnect a lens, its aperture opens up to its widest available. So I'm shooting with an f2.8 lens. As soon as I disconnect it from this body, it is stuck at f2.8. However, Canon users, you have on most cameras a tiny little depth of field preview button. So let's say I set it to 3.5. Now, if I press that depth of field preview button, there's a little click as it stops down to that aperture, because it doesn't actually ever stop down to that aperture until the moment you go to take the picture, or if you're in live view. You could also just put it in live view. While you're holding down that aperture preview button, you disconnect the lens. So it's lost its power, which freezes the aperture at whatever you have set. So now you've got an free f3.5 lens, or whatever you set it at. A little bit of those wider apertures usually work well. And then you want your focus sometime to be in the middle too. It can get kind of tricky to try to get your focus and all of that together. I usually put my focus on the minimum. Now, the other night on the show, I suggested live view, but since then I've been doing a lot more of it than I've ever had before, and actually the viewfinder seems to work best for me. Live view is tricky because the camera really struggles to try to give you a proper exposure simulation. The Nikons do that nicely by keeping it the same brightness level. So again, if you're on Nikon, that's a benefit there, though you don't have the aperture preview button. But through the viewfinder seem to give me the best results most of the time. And you just want to kind of experiment with putting the camera up to your eye, moving the lens around a little bit. And it is basically what you're doing is kind of that tilt shift effect that those really expensive lenses give you by remaining attached. Well, now you're doing it by just using your hand. You can also introduce some interesting light. If your light source is off to your right like that, you open up the lens in that direction and you're going to get a big wash across your sensor. That can be an interesting effect as well. So really, I just want you to give this a shot. Experiment, try, find some fun subject. I also even experimented with putting the camera on the tripod so I could really concentrate on fine movements. If nothing else, this is basically an extension tube when you hold the lens away. You can get a much greater magnification by doing this. That's exactly what extension tubes do. So play around with it a little bit, get some fun effects, and submit them to the weekly assignment. So all you have to do that is have an Instagram account, which is completely free and easy to set up. And then you can just get your picture over. I'll also put a link down below that shows how I get pictures to Instagram from Dropbox, because obviously this isn't a mobile device. You can't really do freelancing with mobile devices unless you're putting, never mind. So all the information you need to know is down there. Have fun with this. I love to see what you all will create, and we'll be back soon with more simple tips like this. And if you're not a subscriber, take a moment to subscribe and give this a thumbs up if you found it fun, useful, gave you something that maybe was going to be an otherwise boring weekend, something to do. Thanks for watching.